Things we don't know. I mentioned a name in that previous video I posted. That name was Hazel. Some of you that watch these know that I had the best dog in the world named Hazel, but I named Hazel after curious person in my life when I was a boy. Her name was Hazel. She hailed out of somewhere in eastern Tennessee. She was a mountain woman, and she was a character. She had no fear. She was aged. She, I can't say she was old, but she had been around a long time, and I can't say that she wasn't old either. But to me, she was pretty magical. She had these kind of eyes that looked into your soul, and they conveyed a lot of words. And at that time in my life, I wasn't good with words. Not that I am now, although I run my mouth a lot. I guess the best way to classify her is she was just magical. But she was a fishing buddy. Not mine, she was Charlie's fishing buddy, but we'd go fishing, the three of us would go fishing together. And she wore these, I don't know what the fabric is, these cotton gowns. I don't know, seems like it was something off of Little House on the Prairie, if anybody knows what that is. But she was very thin, and she at one time had to have the darkest hair, but it was strands of gray in it. But you didn't really see her hair because she kept it on the back of her head in this really tight bun. But I'm sure she knew what was going on with my family, and she had to know how it was affecting me because the way she treated me. And she didn't treat me with any kind of pity or any kind of, it wasn't kid gloves or anything like that. She just got close to me, and she would hold my forearm and then just talk to me. But I can't really remember what she ever said to me. But and that's the strangest thing about it, is I would see her face and I would see her eyes, and they were the kind of eyes that you couldn't look away from, but at the same time you didn't really want to look into. And she would speak to me, but I don't. It was the strangest thing. I don't know if she was speaking to. I don't know. It was like she was speaking to my soul, and it was kind of magical. And she attended the church that my family did, but it was she didn't have that kind of quality. I mean, she was old-timey. She was somebody that came from the mountains, and I think there's something about people that have lived that way. She had an old farmstead there, and around the equinoxes she'd go home, and she'd say she had to go to her farm, and she'd come back from her farm, and she had her trunk full of water, all kinds of jars and glasses and jugs, and she would share that water with people, and she claimed it was, the best water in the world, and she wouldn't drink anything else. And it's evident that she wouldn't drink any other water. Why else would you haul all that water back? But she would give me a glass jug of water as if it were as if she was, parceling out jugs of moonshine or something. But it was just spring water, and it was great water. And she was a character like that, but there was something else to her that was something else that was special. And and looking back, it was just she was just a flash in my life. She was it was like she was there, and then she wasn't. And but I remember, it's the strangest experience. I don't know if you all have had these experiences, but I was awakened. I heard my name called, and then just wide awake, and I laid there in bed and listened, and I couldn't hear anything, nothing. Just nobody had called my name that I recognized, and I just couldn't go back to sleep. It was strange. It was like my heart was racing, and I felt that something was going on, something was moving. And the hours passed, and I just laid there in bed listening, and didn't hear anything else. And then I got up and got dressed and went on to school, and got home later that day, and was having dinner with my parents, and my mom told us all that she'd heard that Hazel had died, and everyone called her Sister Hazel, because that's the way the church called people, members of the church, brother this or sister that. So she said that Sister Hazel had died that morning, and it clicked. And I know it sounds woo-woo, but I'd bet money on it today that at some point in her passing, she had reached out to me. I don't know why. I don't know. Like I said, that sounds pretty woo-woo, but if something like that happens to you, you kind of know it. But she was special, and that leads me to another topic. I grew up in a church that was, I call it a right. I'm pretty, I'm hard on it, but it is what it is. It was my experience. It's certainly not everyone's experience, but my experience with this particular sect or church was, it was this extremist version of religion. It really felt that way then, and I look at it now and I can see that it was. It was it was a soft cult. They, I don't know. I think they, maybe not intentionally, and maybe it was intentionally. It wasn't a sanctioned church. It wasn't part of a larger group of churches. They were their own, batch of people, and they isolated themselves, and they would talk about the Bible, the teachings of God, and the Word of God, but they also, on one hand, it was spreading the gospel and shepherding you how to live your life and how to get to heaven, and Christ's message of grace, but that was not something that I picked up in all of those messages and all those years of being there. I didn't pick up any of that intended message of grace. Maybe I missed it, but after attending church 2, 3, 4 times a week for 15 years or more, it wasn't something that I ever understood. But what I did understand was you had to kind of earn your way to heaven. There were things you had to do. There were things you had to be. There were things you had to not be part of, and the only way you were gonna get there was by putting a lot of work in, and some of that I can understand. Don't do the things that are going to destroy your body or destroy your relationships or injure people. But anyway, so there was this view of heaven that they had, and it was straight out of the Bible, but there were strange stories. They talk about the rapture and the tribulation, and I have some odd views on that too. Those of you that know my name know it's weird, and unless you've read my book, you probably don't get it. But it's a weird name, and it was given to me by my dad, and he received it from a dream. And my father was a spiritual man, and he was very thoughtful, and he had been through a lot, and there were things that happened later that kind of confirmed that name he gave me. But anyway, I was in this church, and they had these views of heaven, and even from before back up, they had their versions of hell too. They were horrifying, and they really liked talking about that kind of stuff. They seemed to operate, they used fear to, this is my opinion, and from my experience, they used fear to manipulate people. Used fear to manipulate people into salvation. But anyway, they had a view of heaven and hell that I had to write off. I couldn't. It was too polarizing. It was too. It was such a conflict, and based upon my name and what I knew before that church and what was going on in my life and what that church was about. But I knew I wasn't going to heaven. It was clear to me that I didn't have what it took to go to this place that they described, and I just figured I'm going to have to endure and fight through this tribulation after this rapture, and endure a Holocaust. And so that's the way I set my mind up as a kid, that life was going to be hard, and that was my lot in life, and my only option was to be as hard as I could be and be as invisible as I could be, and just see where things fell at the end. But they had this view of heaven that was, it was pulled out of the Bible, and I can't help but think a lot of that was just poorly interpreted over the years, and passed down generation after generation. And then you look at the pictures in these Bibles. My sister gave me this Bible, and you look at those pictures, and it's like, this is so bizarre. Streets of gold, and of course they tended to lay this down with a southern preacher's drawl. We're going to be dancing on streets of gold. Everybody's going to have a mansion, and you're never going to have to worry about anything again, and you're going to have the finest foods. And even as a kid, I thought, man, this just sounds so bizarre. This cannot be real. And as life progressed, and I started losing people, they'd talk about, you're going to see all your loved ones again, and you're not going to have any ailments anymore, but I just shucked all that stuff off, and just refused to look at it. But back then I had that moment in the dark of morning when I heard that voice speak out to me, and that stuck, and things like that stick. And recently I don't know, this will be on YouTube. I watch YouTube. I don't watch TV. At some point it came up in the feed, NDEs, or near-death experiences, and so it was interesting. I used to tell people, my defense or my counter to topics of heaven and hell, and the go-to was, well, nobody's ever come back. Death is a it's a one-way trip, and whatever happens on that other side, we don't really know, and we'll never know until we're there. And so that was my go-to. Nobody's come back. There's no proof. So anyways, I found these NDE experiences, these near-death experiences, and listening to people talk who have been clinically dead for minutes to several minutes to some of them are in like an hour. I don't know. I mean, I've been around a lot of dead people, and an hour, there are things that happen there, and so of course I watch these things with skepticism as well, but man, somehow I've picked up some kind of comfort in these accounts, and I'm sure they're salted with people who are struggling, or people looking for fame or notoriety. But some of them are just these outliers that are incredibly interesting. And it's a large spectrum of people. It's you name it: nurses, doctors, attorneys, criminals, average people, drug users. But all of them have kind of had the same experience, and it's I don't know, for a man or an entity like myself that's generally always been glasses empty, less than half empty. I can't call it hope, but it's a glow in the darkness that maybe there is something after this existence, and maybe some of these accounts from these religious writings and records have some validity, and maybe we don't end here. For the longest time, I always just wished that it was just a fade into black. So I carry a lot of things around, and I try to get rid of them. Lord knows I've tried to get rid of them. And I don't like to claim things, but I look forward to shedding them at some point. It's like I can't seem to here. I've read a lot of books and talked to a lot of people, and I've done a lot of things, and done a lot of good things, and I've done a lot of bad things, and these things they're just below the surface, and they cause problems, not just for me, but they cause problems for other people too. And the older I get, I see what they do to other people, and I try real hard not to be myself, and both paths are exhausting. But I see these accounts of the other side, and they're interesting. You know, they talk about. Let me rephrase that. Their accounts are. You know, they can see themselves, you know, leaving their body, and a great many of them are almost exactly the same. And I doubt that these people that have had these accounts have known each other or gotten together and compared notes. But just looking at the variety, they all go away and become something else. They mention that they are an entity without a physical body, and sometimes they'll meet someone they've known in their life, and they join a collective that's just full of light and peace and joy and a love like they've never experienced before, which, you know, kind of doesn't sound too different from the biblical accounts that I've read, but it's interesting, and you know, I the versions of what I wonder about, you know, they're at the end of my book, and it's interesting, and I don't know where I'm going with this. That was my thought this morning at 2:30, thinking about Hazel and